The phone call that shattered my world lasted exactly 3 minutes and 47 seconds. "Shelley, your father and I need to talk to you about Thanksgiving," my mother Carol said, her voice carrying that familiar tone she used when delivering bad news. "Jessica wants her boyfriend Marcus to make a good first impression. She thinks having you there would make her look bad." The words hit me like a physical blow. 28 years of being the dependable daughter, the one who showed up early to help cook, who brought thoughtful gifts, who mediated family arguments. All of it meant nothing. I stared at our last Christmas photo on my kitchen counter, everyone's smiling arms wrapped around each other. I hung up without saying goodbye. I called in sick to work the next morning for the first time in 2 years. My supervisor at Henderson Marketing understood immediately when I said it was a family emergency. She probably heard the exhaustion in my voice, the kind that comes from a sleepless night spent questioning everything you thought you knew about the people who raised you. Jessica had always been the golden child who could do no wrong even when she was doing everything wrong. While I worked 3 jobs to put myself through State University, graduating summa cum laude with a business degree, Jessica fluttered between community colleges, dropping out whenever classes got challenging. She would call our parents crying about mean professors or impossible assignments, and they would swoop in with emotional support and financial assistance. When I graduated, Dad shook my hand and said he was proud. When Jessica dropped out of her 3rd school, they threw her a "you tried your best" party. The pattern continued into our 20s. I built a steady career in digital marketing, starting as an intern and working my way up to senior account manager. I lived in a modest 1-bedroom apartment in downtown Cleveland, drove a reliable Honda Civic, and saved money for retirement like a responsible adult. Jessica bounced between jobs, relationships, and apartments, always needing someone to co-sign a lease or loan her money for rent. Our parents never said no. Every Thanksgiving for the past 6 years, I arrived at our childhood home in Westlake at 9 in the morning. I brought homemade cranberry sauce using our grandmother's recipe, helped Mom prep vegetables, set the table with the good china, and made sure everything ran smoothly. Jessica would roll in around noon with store-bought dinner rolls, complain about traffic, and spend the meal talking about her latest drama. The family hung on her every word like she was performing Shakespeare instead of recounting workplace gossip or dating disasters. Last month, I finally got promoted to senior account manager at Henderson. The promotion came with a $20,000 salary increase and my own team of junior marketers. I had been planning to share this news at Thanksgiving dinner, maybe even offer to help Jessica find a stable marketing position at a partner company. The irony was not lost on me that my professional success was apparently now too embarrassing for family gatherings. Monica arrived at my apartment around 7 that evening, armed with a bottle of Pinot Grigio and Thai takeout. She had been my roommate in college and remained my closest friend through all the family drama over the years. Monica understood the dynamics better than anyone because she had witnessed Jessica's manipulations firsthand during holiday visits and family parties. "Tell me exactly what your mother said," Monica demanded, settling onto my couch with wine glasses. I repeated the conversation word for word, watching her expression grow more incredulous with each detail. "Wait," she interrupted, nearly spilling her wine. "This is about making a good impression on the new boyfriend, the one Jessica's been dating for 2 months?" 3 months, I corrected. "She met him in August." Monica was quiet for a long moment, swirling wine in her glass. "Shelley, I need to tell you something. Last Wednesday, I was at Lola Bistro with clients from work. I saw Jessica there with a guy who matches your description of Marcus. Tall, dark hair, wearing an expensive suit." So he was wearing a Rolex Submariner. The real deal, not some knockoff. And when they left, I watched him unlock a brand new Tesla Model S in the valet section. Those cars start at $80,000 shell. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. This was not about Marcus making a good first impression on our family. This was about Jessica making a good impression on Marcus, a wealthy Marcus. And somehow my presence threatened that carefully constructed image she was building. I thought about all the times Jessica had described her career in vague terms, She called herself a freelance consultant, but never specified what kind of consulting. She lived in an expensive apartment in Tremont, but claimed she was house-sitting for a friend. She always had money for designer clothes and expensive dinners, but borrowed cash from our parents for basic necessities. "She's targeting him," I said quietly. "She's not in love. She's hunting." Monica nodded grimly. "And your parents are helping her do it. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" I stared at the Christmas photo again, seeing it with new eyes. Jessica's perfect smile, our parents' proud expressions, my own genuine happiness at being surrounded by family. How long had they been viewing me as an obstacle instead of a daughter? "I don't know," I admitted, "but I'm done pretending this is normal." The pounding on my apartment door started at 8:30 the next morning, aggressive and demanding. I peered through the peephole to see both my parents standing in the hallway, their faces flushed with anger. Dad wore his golf clothes, which meant they had driven straight from their Saturday morning routine at the country club. Mom clutched her purse like a weapon. "Shelley Marie Thompson, you open this door right now," she called through the wood. I unlocked the deadbolt and stepped back as they pushed past me into my living room. Dad's eyes swept the space disapprovingly, taking in my thrift store furniture and student loan payment reminders stuck to the refrigerator. Mom perched on the edge of my couch like she was afraid of catching something. "What did you tell people about our family?" Dad demanded without preamble. "What lies have you been spreading?" "Good morning to you too," I said, crossing my arms. "I haven't told anyone anything. I've been in my apartment since yesterday evening." "Don't lie to us," Mom snapped. "Marcus called off Thanksgiving. He said he doesn't want to be involved with our family anymore. He told your father that we seem dysfunctional and he's not interested in drama." A cold satisfaction spread through my chest. So the golden boy decided our family wasn't good enough for him after all. "This is not a joke," Dad said, his voice rising. "Do you have any idea how much this means to Jessica? She's finally found someone stable and successful, someone who can take care of her properly, and you've ruined it." "I've ruined it. I haven't even met the man. How exactly did I ruin something by existing?" Mom's composure cracked slightly. "Marcus met Jessica's extended family at your cousin Sarah's dinner party last weekend. He asked a lot of questions about family dynamics and relationships. Jessica said he seemed concerned about something, but she couldn't figure out what. I remembered Sarah's party. Jessica had posted photos on social media showing herself laughing with relatives playing with Sarah's children, looking like the perfect family woman. I had not been invited to that gathering either, though I learned about it afterward through Facebook." "What kind of questions?" I asked. "Questions about why Jessica's older sister wasn't there," Dad admitted reluctantly. "Questions about whether our family gets along. Jessica tried to explain that you're just busy with work, but he kept pressing for details." "So Jessica started telling stories," I guessed. Mom looked uncomfortable. "She might have mentioned that you can be judgmental sometimes, that you don't always approve of her choices. She was just trying to explain why you two aren't very close." "What else did she tell him?" The silence stretched long enough for me to know the answer would be bad. Finally, Dad spoke. "She said you struggle with jealousy, that you've always resented her success and happiness, that you tend to create problems when she's doing well." The words hit like physical blows. My own sister had painted me as mentally unstable to explain away my absence from family events. She had turned my exclusion into evidence of my character flaws rather than theirs. "And you let her say these things?" "We didn't let her do anything," Mom protested. "We weren't there. We only heard about it afterward when Marcus started asking us direct questions about family stability and whether Jessica had a good support system." "What did you tell him?" Another uncomfortable pause. "We told him that Jessica is our priority right now, that she's been through some difficult times and needs our support while she builds this relationship. We explained that you're very career-focused, and sometimes that creates tension." I stared at my parents, seeing strangers. These people had thrown me under the bus to protect Jessica's lies, and they had done it so smoothly that they probably convinced themselves it was the truth. Where is Jessica now? At home, devastated, Mom said. She really cares about Marcus. This isn't just some casual relationship for her. Mrs. Patterson from next door chose that moment to water her plants on the shared balcony outside my sliding door. She was a retired teacher in her 70s who had lived in the building for 15 years and knew everyone's business. The walls were thin enough that she had undoubtedly heard every word of our conversation. As if summoned by my thoughts, Mrs. Patterson tapped on the glass. I slid the door open, grateful for the interruption. "I'm sorry to intrude, dear," she said in her gentle voice, but I couldn't help overhearing. "Are you talking about your sister, Jessica?" "Yes, ma'am. The pretty blonde girl who visits sometimes. That's her." Mrs. Patterson glanced at my parents, then back at me. "I hope you don't mind me saying, but that girl has brought several different young men around over the past few months. Always expensively dressed, always driving nice cars. I remember thinking it was unusual because she introduced each one as her boyfriend to the neighbors." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Mom's face went pale. "How many men?" Dad asked quietly. "Oh, at least 4 or 5 since summer," Mrs. Patterson said matter-of-factly, "including that tall fellow with the Tesla. But there was also a lawyer with a Mercedes and a doctor with a BMW. Very handsome young men, all of them. I assumed she was quite popular." She smiled pleasantly and retreated to her own apartment, leaving my parents to process this information. I watched the reality sink in across their faces. Jessica was not dating Marcus exclusively. She was running multiple relationships, simultaneously targeting wealthy men and presenting each one with a different version of herself and her family situation. "There has to be an explanation," Mom said weakly. "There is," I replied. "Jessica's been lying to all of them. The question is, what else has she been lying about?" My parents spent the next hour demanding details about Mrs. Patterson's observations while simultaneously trying to defend Jessica's honor. Dad paced between my kitchen and living room, his golf shoes clicking against the hardwood floor. Mom called Jessica 3 times, each call going straight to voicemail. "Maybe she's networking," Mom suggested desperately. "Maybe these men are business contacts." "Business contacts who she introduces as boyfriends to the neighbors." "You don't understand the pressure she's under," Dad said. "Dating is competitive these days. Maybe she's just keeping her options open until someone commits." By lying to everyone involved, the conversation was interrupted by Mrs. Patterson's return. She knocked gently on my door, carrying a small photo album. "I hope you'll forgive an old woman's nosiness," she said, but I realized I might have pictures. "I've been documenting the building's flower gardens for the Homeowners Association, and I sometimes catch people in the background." She opened the album to recent photos of the building's landscaping. Sure enough, several pictures captured Jessica with different men over the past few months. There was Marcus with his Tesla in July, a different man with a silver Mercedes in August, another with a black BMW in September. In each photo, Jessica was dressed differently, styled differently, presenting different versions of herself. "This one," Mrs. Patterson pointed to the August photo. "I remember him specifically because he mentioned he was a defense attorney. Very polite young man. He helped me carry groceries up the stairs." Mom sank onto my couch, staring at the evidence. "David Morrison," she whispered. "What?" "The lawyer. His name is David Morrison. Jessica brought him to dinner in August. She said they had been dating for 6 months and were getting serious. She asked us not to mention her financial difficulties because she wanted him to see her as independent." The timeline was damning. If Jessica had been dating David Morrison for 6 months as of August and she started dating Marcus in August, she was maintaining overlapping relationships while lying about their duration to everyone involved. Dad sat down heavily in my single chair. "What financial difficulties?" Mom shot him a warning look, but the cat was already out of the bag. "Jessica's been having trouble making ends meet. Her consulting work has been slow. We've been helping her with rent and credit card payments." "For how long?" Since spring, maybe longer. How much longer? Mom's silence answered the question. They had been subsidizing Jessica's lifestyle for far more than a few months. I thought about her expensive apartment, her designer clothes, her frequent trips to high-end restaurants and spas. My parents had been bankrolling an elaborate performance designed to attract wealthy men. Where is she getting the money for everything else? The clothes, the dinners, the lifestyle. She said Marcus and David were generous, Mom admitted quietly. They took her to nice places, bought her things. She said successful men like to spoil the women they care about. So she's been accepting expensive gifts from multiple men while lying about being exclusive with each of them. Dad rubbed his temples. This can't be true. Jessica wouldn't do something like that. Mrs. Patterson cleared her throat gently. I'm afraid there's more. Last month, I overheard her on the phone in the hallway. She was talking to someone about background research on potential dates. She mentioned looking up net worth and business ownership before agreeing to meet men. It sounded very calculated. The room fell silent, except for the ticking of my kitchen clock. My parents were finally seeing Jessica's behavior for what it was, a systematic campaign to find and deceive wealthy men for financial gain. And they had been enabling it by providing financial support and family legitimacy. We need to call her, Dad said finally. We need to call all of them, I corrected. Jessica is committing fraud. She's taking money and gifts under false pretenses. These men deserve to know what they're dealing with. You can't be serious, Mom protested. She's your sister. Family protects family. Real family doesn't throw each other under the bus for money, I shot back. Real family doesn't enable destructive behavior. And real family doesn't exclude members for being embarrassing when the embarrassment is actually honesty. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Hi, this is Marcus. Jessica gave me your number. I was hoping we could meet to discuss your family situation. I have some concerns about your sister's honesty that I think you should know about. Would you be available for coffee this afternoon? I showed the message to my parents. Dad's face went ashen. He wants to talk to me about Jessica. Don't you dare, Mom warned. Don't you dare say anything that will hurt your sister's chances with him. Her chances are already ruined, Mom. She ruined them herself by lying. The question is whether we're going to keep enabling her or finally force her to face the consequences of her choices. I texted Marcus back, yes, I'm available. Starbucks on West 25th at 2 o'clock saying. His response was immediate. Perfect. I'll be wearing a navy suit. Looking forward to meeting you. Dad stood up abruptly. We're leaving. Don't you dare sabotage your sister. I'm not sabotaging anyone. I'm finally telling the truth. Maybe you should try it sometime. They left without saying goodbye, their anger filling my small apartment like smoke. Mrs. Patterson patted my shoulder kindly before returning to her own unit. I spent the next 2 hours preparing for a conversation that would either destroy my family completely or force them to finally face reality. Either way, I was done being the family scapegoat for Jessica's lies. The Starbucks on West 25th was busy with Saturday afternoon shoppers and students from the nearby Cleveland Institute of Art. Marcus was easy to spot in his navy suit sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee and an expression of serious concern. He stood when he saw me approach, extending his hand with a firm shake. Shelley, thank you for agreeing to meet. I ordered you a latte, but if you prefer something else... Latte is perfect, I said, settling into the chair across from him. Up close, he was even more handsome than Jessica's social media photos suggested. Mid-30s, well-groomed with intelligent brown eyes and the confident bearing of someone accustomed to success. I could understand why Jessica had targeted him. I want to start by saying that I really did care about your sister, he began carefully. When we first met, she seemed genuine and sweet, but over the past few weeks, some inconsistencies in her stories have been bothering me. What kind of inconsistencies? Marcus pulled out his phone and opened a notes app. She told me she graduated from Ohio State with a degree in communications, but when I mentioned knowing professors there, she couldn't name any of her instructors. She said she works as a marketing consultant but couldn't provide specifics about clients or projects. She claimed to live independently but never invited me to her apartment. Did you ask her about these things directly? I tried. Every time I pressed for details, she would change the subject or create some drama to distract me. Last week, when I suggested we have dinner at her place instead of going out, she started crying about how stressed she was about family problems and how she needed my support. I sipped my latte, recognizing Jessica's manipulation tactics. She had always been skilled at deflecting uncomfortable questions by creating emotional emergencies that required immediate attention and sympathy. Then there was the dinner party at your cousin Sarah's house, Marcus continued. Jessica introduced me to your extended family, but when people asked about you, she became evasive. She implied that you had some kind of mental health issues that made family gatherings difficult. What exactly did she say? Marcus consulted his notes again. She said you were jealous of her success and happiness, that you had a pattern of creating problems when she was doing well, that you were so competitive and resentful that your parents had to limit your involvement in family events to keep the peace. The words stung even though I had expected them. And you believed her? Initially, yes, but something about her delivery felt rehearsed. And when I asked your parents about it privately, their answers didn't quite align with hers. They seemed more focused on protecting Jessica than genuinely concerned about you. Marcus reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small folder. Then I did some research. What kind of research? Professional research. Jessica isn't the only woman I've met who seemed too good to be true. 6 months ago, my business partner almost married someone who turned out to be running a long-term fraud scheme. She had been dating multiple wealthy men simultaneously while building elaborate lies about her background and intentions. He opened the folder to reveal printed screenshots and documents. I hired a private investigator to look into Jessica's background. What we found was disturbing. The first page showed Jessica's real social media profiles, not the carefully curated versions she had shown Marcus. These profiles revealed her actual employment history, a series of retail and service jobs, none lasting more than 6 months. Her education records showed enrollment at 3 different community colleges with no completed degrees. She's been systematically targeting successful men through professional networking events and upscale social gatherings, Marcus explained. The investigator found evidence of at least 6 different relationships over the past 18 months, all with wealthy professionals. The next page showed financial records. Jessica's credit report revealed substantial debt, multiple defaulted loans, and a pattern of opening new credit accounts to pay existing balances. Her apartment was indeed a house-sitting arrangement, but for multiple properties belonging to men she had dated. David Morrison, the defense attorney, let her stay in his condo for 2 months while he was traveling. When he returned unexpectedly and found her bringing another man there, he ended the relationship immediately. She was using his place for dates with other people. Among other things, she also used his address to apply for credit cards and loans. David is considering pressing charges for identity theft. The evidence was overwhelming and nauseating. My sister was not just lying to these men, she was actively defrauding them. Why are you showing me this instead of just walking away? I asked. Marcus closed the folder and leaned back in his chair. Because I don't think Jessica is inherently evil. I think she's desperate and making increasingly dangerous choices. And I think your family's enabling behavior has prevented her from facing the consequences she needs to change course. What do you want from me? I want to give Jessica a chance to come clean before this escalates further. David Morrison isn't the only victim considering legal action. If this pattern continues, she could face serious criminal charges. He pulled out another document, this one official-looking with legal letterhead. My attorney has prepared a cease and desist letter regarding the financial fraud. But before we send it, I wanted to talk to you about organizing an intervention. An intervention? A family meeting where everything comes out, where Jessica has to face the evidence and acknowledge what she's been doing, where your parents have to stop enabling her and start demanding honesty, and where you stop being the family scapegoat for problems you didn't create. I stared at Marcus, seeing him clearly for the first time. He was not the naive victim Jessica thought she was manipulating. He was a successful businessman who had recognized her game and was now offering her family a chance to address it privately before taking legal action. You want to help her? I want to help all of you. This dysfunction isn't sustainable and it's hurting everyone involved, including you. I thought about my parents' visit that morning, their immediate assumption that I was responsible for Marcus walking away. I thought about years of family gatherings where I was expected to enable Jessica's behavior and pretend everything was normal. What would this intervention look like? Marcus smiled for the first time since I had arrived. Like a family dinner where everyone finally tells the truth. The family dinner was scheduled for the following Sunday at my parents' house in Westlake. Marcus had suggested neutral territory, but I knew my parents would be more likely to participate if they felt in control of the environment. Jessica thought she was coming to reconcile with Marcus and plan their future together. My parents thought they were hosting a dinner to smooth over family tensions. Only Marcus and I knew what was really about to happen. I arrived early to help with preparations, carrying homemade dinner rolls and sweet potato casserole like normal. Mom was bustling around the kitchen in her best dress, chattering nervously about table settings and wine pairings. Dad sat in his recliner watching football with unusual intensity. I'm so glad Marcus changed his mind about our family, Mom said, arranging flowers in her good crystal vase. Jessica was heartbroken when he canceled Thanksgiving. She's been crying for days. Where is Jessica now? Getting ready at her apartment. She wanted to look perfect for tonight. She bought a new dress and got her hair done this morning. The doorbell rang at exactly 6 o'clock. Jessica stood on the front porch in a stunning burgundy dress that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Her hair was styled in elegant waves, her makeup professionally done. She looked like she was attending a gala instead of a family dinner. Marcus, she squealed when she saw him standing behind me in the entryway. She threw her arms around him, pressing herself against his expensive suit. I've missed you so much. I was so worried you were angry with me. We need to talk, Jessica, Marcus said gently, not returning her embrace. But first, let's all sit down for dinner. The dining room table was set with Mom's finest china and silver. Candles flickered in the crystal holders, casting warm light over the carefully arranged place settings. Everything looked perfect, like a magazine spread for gracious entertaining. Jessica dominated the conversation through the first course, chattering about her consulting projects and upcoming business trips. She mentioned meetings with high-profile clients and opportunities for international expansion. Every word was a carefully constructed lie designed to impress Marcus and convince him she was a successful independent woman worthy of his attention. Tell me more about your consulting business, Marcus said during the main course. What specific services do you provide? Jessica's smile faltered slightly. Oh, strategic planning and market analysis, business development, corporate communications. For which companies? I can't really discuss client details due to confidentiality agreements, Jessica said smoothly. You understand how sensitive business information can be. Of course, but surely you can mention the general industries, healthcare technology, manufacturing. A little bit of everything, Jessica said, her voice becoming strained. I like to diversify my portfolio. Marcus nodded thoughtfully and turned to my parents. Frank Carroll, what do you think of Jessica's career success? You must be proud of her business accomplishments. Mom beamed. Oh, yes, we're so proud. Jessica has always been our entrepreneurial daughter. She's so creative and ambitious. And financially independent, Dad added. She's been supporting herself completely for the past year. The lies were piling up faster than snow in a blizzard. I watched Marcus take careful note of each contradiction, building his case methodically. That's impressive, Marcus said. Shelley tells me she's in marketing as well. Maybe you two could collaborate on projects. Jessica's fork clattered against her plate. Shelley and I work in completely different areas. She does small-scale local campaigns. I handle much larger, more complex initiatives. What's your biggest current project? Marcus pressed. I really can't discuss specific details, Jessica repeated, her composure cracking further. Then let's talk about something else, Marcus said pleasantly. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small digital recorder. I hope no one minds, but I'd like to record our conversation tonight for clarity. There seem to be some misunderstandings about family dynamics that I'd like to address directly. The temperature in the room plummeted. Jessica stared at the recorder like it was a weapon. What kind of misunderstandings? Dad asked carefully. Well, for example, Jessica told me that Shelley has mental health issues that make family gatherings difficult. But Shelley seems perfectly stable and reasonable to me. She's been nothing but honest and straightforward in our conversations. Jessica's face flushed deep red. What conversations? We had coffee yesterday. She showed me some very interesting information about your business activities. You went behind my back! Jessica's voice rose to a near shriek. You talked to my sister without telling me. The same way you've been talking to other men without telling me, Marcus replied calmly. What other men? Marcus smiled grimly. David Morrison sends his regards. Also, Dr. Andrew Chen from University Hospitals and Robert Kim from Progressive Insurance. Should I continue? Jessica's perfect facade crumbled instantly. Her professionally styled hair seemed to wilt, her expensive makeup couldn't hide the panic in her eyes, and her elegant dress suddenly looked like a costume she was wearing to audition for a role she wasn't qualified to play. I can explain, she whispered. Please do, Marcus said, his voice steel wrapped in velvet. Explain how you've been dating multiple men simultaneously while lying to each of us about being exclusive. Explain how you've been accepting expensive gifts and financial support under false pretenses. Explain how you've been using borrowed apartments for dates with different men. Stop it, Mom said sharply. Marcus, there's no need to attack Jessica like this. I'm not attacking anyone. I'm stating facts. Would you like to see the evidence? He pulled out the folder from our coffee meeting and began spreading photos and documents across Mom's pristine tablecloth. Financial records showing Jessica's massive debt, screenshots of dating profiles where she claimed to be a successful consultant, photos of her with different men at expensive restaurants and events. Dad stared at the evidence with growing horror. Jessica, what is this? It's not what it looks like, Jessica said desperately. These are business contacts, networking opportunities. I was trying to build my career. By lying about having a career in the first place, I asked quietly. Jessica whirled on me with pure fury. This is your fault. You're jealous because I found someone successful who wants to take care of me. You can't stand seeing me happy. Happy? I stood up from the table. You call fraud and deception happiness. At least I'm not a pathetic spinster working 60 hours a week for a paycheck that barely covers my student loans, Jessica snarled. At least I'm not so desperate for attention that I have to sabotage my own sister's relationships. The words hit their intended target, but instead of crumbling, I felt something snap into place. For the first time in my life, I was done accepting Jessica's abuse. You know what, Jessica? You're right. I am jealous. I'm jealous that you get to lie and manipulate and destroy people's trust, and our parents call it ambition. I'm jealous that you get to commit fraud and call it networking. I'm jealous that you get to be a completely selfish, destructive person, and somehow I'm the one who's embarrassing to the family. Shelley, Dad warned. No, Dad. I'm done protecting her from consequences. I'm done being the family scapegoat so you can pretend Jessica's behavior is normal. I turned back to my sister. But you know what I'm not jealous of? I'm not jealous of lying awake at night wondering if today is the day my house of cards collapses. I'm not jealous of looking at every person in my life as a potential mark to exploit. And I'm not jealous of being so empty inside that I have to steal other people's affection because I don't know how to earn it honestly. Jessica's face contorted with rage. You sanctimonious bitch! You think you're so much better than me with your little job and your little apartment and your pathetic little life. But guess what? I'm pregnant and Marcus is going to marry me whether he likes it or not. So enjoy your moral superiority while I enjoy being taken care of for the rest of my life. The silence that followed was deafening. Mom's face went white. Dad's mouth hung open. Marcus reached calmly for his phone. "That's interesting," Marcus said conversationally, "because according to the medical records my investigator obtained, you had a negative pregnancy test at the Cleveland Clinic 2 weeks ago, the same day you called me crying about morning sickness." Jessica's triumphant expression crumbled into pure panic. She had just confessed to attempting pregnancy fraud in front of witnesses with a digital recorder running. "You have no right to access my medical records," she whispered. "I don't. But David Morrison does, since you used his insurance information and claimed to be his fiancé when you couldn't pay for the appointment." The house of cards wasn't just collapsing, it was exploding. For 30 seconds, nobody moved. Jessica sat frozen in her chair, staring at Marcus like he had just revealed himself to be the devil. My parents looked shell-shocked, processing the reality that their golden child had been systematically defrauding multiple men while committing identity theft. The candles continued flickering cheerfully, oblivious to the destruction of everything my family thought they knew about themselves. Then Jessica lunged for the recorder. Marcus was faster, sliding the device away from her grasping fingers. "Don't make this worse than it already is." "You can't use that," Jessica panted. "I didn't consent to being recorded." "Ohio is a one-party consent state," I said calmly. "Marcus only needs his own permission to record conversations he's part of." Jessica whirled on me again. "You planned this. You set me up." "No, Jessica. You set yourself up. I just stopped covering for you." I walked to the kitchen and returned with a manila folder I had prepared before dinner. "Since we're being honest, tonight let me share some things too." I opened the folder and pulled out printed screenshots of Jessica's social media accounts, the ones Marcus hadn't found. These are from Jessica's private Instagram and Snapchat accounts, where she brags to her friends about manipulating stupid rich guys and playing the game. The first screenshot showed Jessica at an expensive spa captioned, "When your lawyer boyfriend pays for your stress relief while you're texting your tech boyfriend about weekend plans." Another showed her at a jewelry store examining expensive necklaces. "Time to hint about early Christmas presents. These idiots will buy anything if you cry about feeling unloved." My parents stared at the evidence of their daughter's calculated cruelty. This was not desperation or poor judgment. This was deliberate exploitation of people's trust and generosity. "There's more," I continued, pulling out financial documents. "I've been tracking family money for the past 6 months, ever since I noticed unusual charges on the credit card you gave Jessica for emergencies." The bank statements told a devastating story. Jessica had been using the family emergency credit card for designer clothes, expensive dinners with her marks, and even hotel rooms when she needed private spaces for her deceptions. The total was over $15,000 in 6 months. "Frank," Mom whispered, seeing the numbers, "we can't afford this." "There's something else you need to know," I said gently. "I talked to a financial advisor last week. Based on your current debts and spending patterns, you're looking at bankruptcy within 18 months if this continues." Dad's face went gray. "How do you know about our finances?" "Because I'm the one who's been paying for Jessica's car insurance and health insurance for the past year. You asked me to help temporarily remember when Jessica was between consulting contracts." The room was so quiet I could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. My parents were finally seeing the complete picture: Jessica's systematic fraud, their enabling behavior, and the financial destruction that was threatening their retirement security. "What do you want from us?" Dad asked quietly. "I want you to stop treating me like I'm the problem when I refuse to enable Jessica's behavior. I want you to acknowledge that protecting her from consequences has made things worse, not better. And I want you to get professional help before this destroys what's left of our family." I pulled out another set of documents. "I've already made appointments with Dr. Sarah Rodriguez, a family therapist who specializes in addiction and enabling behaviors. I've also scheduled a meeting with Tom Bradley, a financial planner who can help you restructure your debts without declaring bankruptcy. You can't just make decisions for us, Mom protested. I'm not making decisions for you. I'm offering you options. You can choose to get help, or you can choose to continue enabling Jessica until she ends up in prison and you end up homeless. But I'm done being part of the dysfunction. Marcus cleared his throat. I should mention that David Morrison has decided not to press charges if Jessica agrees to counseling and makes restitution for the identity theft. Dr. Chen and Robert Kim are also willing to handle this privately if she gets help. What about you? Jessica asked in a small voice. I'm willing to let this go if you commit to intensive therapy and agree to have no contact with me or my business associates, Marcus said. But if you violate that agreement, all the evidence goes to the district attorney's office. Jessica looked around the table at faces that were no longer sympathetic or protective. For the first time in her life, she was facing real consequences without anyone rushing to save her. I don't know how to stop, she whispered finally. I don't know how to be the person you want me to be. We don't want you to be anyone but yourself, I said. But first you have to figure out who that is without the lies. Marcus stood up and handed me his business card. Shelley, I meant what I said about helping you start your own consulting business. You've shown more integrity and strategic thinking tonight than most people demonstrate in their entire careers. Call me when you're ready to discuss it. He shook my father's hand and nodded politely to my mother. Frank Carroll, I hope your family finds healing. You have one daughter who's been lying to everyone, including herself, but you also have one daughter who's been trying to save you all from the consequences of those lies. Don't lose sight of which is which. After Marcus left, we sat in the ruins of our family dinner, surrounded by evidence of Jessica's deceptions and years of accumulated dysfunction. But for the first time in my adult life, I felt hopeful about our future. Because sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable someone's destruction. And sometimes the truth, no matter how painful, is the only path to genuine healing. 6 months after the dinner that changed everything, I was sitting in the modern office space of Thompson Strategic Solutions, the marketing consultancy I had founded with Marcus as my first major client. The exposed brick walls displayed framed testimonials from satisfied customers, and the view of downtown Cleveland through my corner window reminded me every day how far I had come from that devastating Thanksgiving phone call. Jessica knocked on my office door at exactly 3 o'clock, holding 2 cups of coffee from the shop downstairs. She looked different now, healthier, more genuine, wearing a simple blue dress that suited her natural coloring instead of the designer costumes she used to hide behind. Her hair was styled simply, and her makeup was minimal but elegant. Most importantly, her smile reached her eyes for the first time in years. I brought you a peace offering, she said, setting a vanilla latte on my desk, and I wanted to update you on my progress. We had been meeting monthly since she started intensive therapy with Dr. Rodriguez. The first few sessions had been brutal, with Jessica alternating between defensive anger and overwhelming shame as she confronted the reality of her behavior. But gradually she began to understand the difference between genuine self-improvement and the performance of improvement she had mastered so well. How's the job going? I asked, gesturing for her to sit in the comfortable chair across from my desk. Really well, actually. I got promoted to assistant manager at the nonprofit. It turns out I'm pretty good at organizing events and managing volunteers when I'm not trying to manipulate anyone. Jessica was working for a local organization that helped women transition out of abusive relationships. The irony was not lost on either of us that she was now helping other women escape the kind of destructive patterns she had created in her own life. And I have news, she continued, a genuine excitement brightening her face. I've been accepted to finish my degree at Cleveland State, part-time while I work, but I'll graduate in 2 years with a degree in social work. Jessica, that's amazing. I'm so proud of you. I know it doesn't erase what I did, she said quietly. David Morrison was incredibly generous about the financial restitution, and Dr. Chen actually wrote me a reference letter for the nonprofit job after I completed the community service hours. But I know I hurt people, and I know I hurt our family. You also saved our family by finally telling the truth, I reminded her. Mom and Dad are doing so much better since they started therapy. Our parents had initially resisted family counseling, but the reality of their financial situation had forced them to seek professional help. Tom Bradley, the financial planner, had helped them restructure their debts and create a realistic budget that didn't include subsidizing adult children's lifestyles. More importantly, Dr. Rodriguez had helped them understand the difference between supporting their children and enabling destructive behavior. Speaking of Mom and Dad, Jessica said, they wanted me to invite you to Thanksgiving dinner next week. The real invitation this time, not the guilt trip manipulation they used to do. I laughed, remembering how much had changed since that horrible phone call 11 months ago. Are you sure they want me there? I won't make the family look bad. You never made us look bad, Shelley. You made us look honest, and we weren't ready for that kind of responsibility. Jessica's therapy had included a significant focus on understanding how her behavior had affected other family members, particularly me. She had spent months working through the realization that her lies and manipulations had turned me into the family scapegoat blamed for problems I had actually been trying to solve. There's something else I want to tell you, Jessica said, her voice becoming more serious. Marcus called me last week. My pulse quickened slightly. Marcus and I had maintained a strictly professional relationship as he helped me establish my business, but I would be lying if I said I hadn't noticed his intelligence, integrity, and kindness during our working meetings. Is everything okay? Did something happen with the business? He wanted my permission to ask you on a date, Jessica said with a grin. Apparently, he's been wanting to ask for months, but he wanted to make sure I was comfortable with it given our history. I stared at my sister, processing this information. What did you tell him? I told him that if he hurts you, I'll use all my manipulation skills to destroy his credit rating and convince his mother he's secretly married to a circus performer, Jessica said solemnly. Then her face broke into a genuine smile. But seriously, I told him I couldn't be happier. You deserve someone who sees your worth, and he's been talking about your intelligence and character since the night he met you. He's been talking about me. Oh, Shelley, he's been completely smitten for months. He just wanted to make sure he approached the situation with integrity given how it started. I thought about Marcus's steady presence during the most difficult period of my life, the way he had handled Jessica's deceptions with firmness, but not cruelty, and his genuine excitement about helping me build something meaningful with my career. I might be interested in getting to know him better outside of work, I admitted. Good, because he's picking you up at 7 tonight for dinner at Lolita. He made reservations weeks ago, but was too nervous to ask until now. I laughed out loud. He already made the reservation? He's been carrying the confirmation email around like a good luck charm, Jessica said. Dr. Rodriguez says healthy people plan for positive outcomes instead of just reacting to crises. The conversation was interrupted by my assistant bringing in contracts for a new client, a small tech startup that needed help developing their brand identity. My business had grown steadily over the past 6 months, built on referrals from satisfied customers and a reputation for honest strategic thinking. I should let you get back to work, Jessica said, standing up, but thank you for not giving up on me even when I gave up on myself. Thank you for doing the hard work to become someone worth not giving up on, I replied. After Jessica left, I sat in my office, reflecting on the journey that had brought us to this point. The woman who had been uninvited from Thanksgiving for being embarrassing was now running a successful business, preparing for a date with a man who valued her character and rebuilding relationships based on honesty instead of dysfunction. But more than my personal success, I was proud of what our family had accomplished together. Jessica was building a life based on genuine achievement rather than deception. Our parents were learning to love their children without enabling destructive behavior. And I had discovered that standing up for myself didn't destroy relationships. It created space for better ones. That evening, as Marcus arrived at my apartment with flowers and a nervous smile, I realized that sometimes the most painful disruptions in life are actually invitations to create something better. Sometimes being excluded from dysfunction is the first step toward being included in healing. The Thanksgiving dinner the following week was nothing like the elaborate performances our family used to stage. Mom cooked a simple meal without stress. Dad watched football without anxiety about family tensions, and Jessica shared genuine stories about her work and school instead of fabricated tales of business success. There were no designer clothes or expensive gifts or carefully constructed images to maintain. But there was laughter, real laughter, and gratitude that felt honest instead of obligated, and conversations that brought us closer together instead of driving us apart. As I looked around the table at my family, flawed but healing, I understood the most important lesson of this entire experience. Real love doesn't require perfection, but it does require truth. When we finally stopped protecting each other from consequences and started supporting each other through growth, we discovered what family is supposed to feel like. Sometimes the best thing that can happen to a family is for someone to refuse to participate in the dysfunction. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is insist on honesty even when it's uncomfortable. And sometimes being uninvited from the wrong gathering is exactly what you need to find your way to the right one. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been the family member who was blamed for problems you didn't create? Have you struggled with setting boundaries when people you love are making destructive choices? How did you find the courage to choose truth over peace even when it meant risking relationships that mattered to you? Share your story in the comments below, and let's support each other through these difficult but necessary conversations. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe for more stories about finding strength in the midst of family challenges. Share this with anyone who might need to hear that choosing integrity over enabling is not selfish, it's necessary. And remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is refuse to participate in their self-destruction. Thank you for joining me on this journey toward healing and truth. I hope your own family relationships are built on the foundation of genuine love and mutual respect. Take care of yourselves, and remember that you deserve relationships that celebrate your authentic self, not relationships that require you to diminish yourself to make others comfortable.